Yo, check this out. This is Wayne Wonder, representing for Warrior LTV. You see the vision, don't it? See the vision. Warrior LTV. Keep it locked.
Now, I'm gonna tell you. We, as bloggers, these are the issues that we need to address. You understand what I said? Set the bar for the youth. Share, like, and subscribe, and stay tuned to the channel. I don't know all this. Yes, brothers and sisters, greetings once again in the mighty name of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. and all things good and wonderful amongst us and about us. Welcome viewers and subscribers. Viewers, if you like the content, subscribe and you go to the platform. It will be a nice thing. See? Like the content, just press the like button. That would be much appreciated love. So we want to observe today a broadcast going between Bruce Golding and Damien Crawford. See, ex-Prime Minister, ex-JLP Prime Minister, and a current PMP Senator are up and the opposition to something another. I don't remember why I'm really is about. You know, see, but this, we're going to show you how much, I'll play the video for the item. So that's the item C. How much politicians are aware, you know, with what it necessitates or what it needs to maintain the educational system or to develop the fabric of society, the you know, ambition and you know, reset some of them problems here we have befall the nation today. You know, see. So without no long thing, we all play the video between the two man them, where the two man them are reason, and they them pick sense out of them nonsense or them nonsense out of sense or whatever, and have a discussion in the comment section, because it really groundbreaking. I never say groundbreaking, you know, but again, you hear how inside of the man them mind work. You know, see, the man them know everything what go on, but them just when them in a power, it's like them not have no power. And when them out of power, you hear them argument. Yeah. Anyway, we give thanks once again. Just take in that video and you know, we could have a discussion in the comment section.
Senator Crawford, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Right Honorable. How are you doing?
I'm good. How have you been?
I'm living a good life myself.
I bet you don't remember the first time I met you.
I wouldn't say I do. You have to remind me.
we were on the hosting down in Westmoreland. It was a by-election.
Oh, yes. You would have been by my grandmother's house.
Yes. How have you been?
I'm doing a little farming, so I'm at the farm most days. In goat and chicken.
You've been talking about the program. What I'm discussing today is a question of the brain drain that Jamaica suffers, no? Yes. And I know it's an issue that you have spoken about. Now, it's not just teachers that we're losing. The health sector suffers badly. We lose
police.
We lose 2/3 of our nurses and 50% of the doctors that we train.
Right.
And there are many technical areas in ICT and so on where we're losing people. So what I wanted to ask you to do is to, in a way, elasticize your portfolio remit and look at the problem in its broader context. Right. We're losing a lot of the skilled people that we have invested a lot. I mean, they have to pay them tuition fees, and that is burdensome. But, you know, the government spends $13 billion a year on university training. Right. And we're losing a lot of them to countries that are far richer than we are.
Yes.
How do we fix that problem, Damien?
Well, I am happy that you asked to elasticize a bit, because I think we also need to consider what is the basis of the problem that we're facing and why the impact is being exaggerated at this particular point in time. Because there was a point in time that the mass of our migration was for muscle work. And now the mass of our migration is for mental mind work. And that's because over time, machines have replaced muscle And so the demand now exists in the main.
And also because immigration restrictions have got tighter.
Have gotten tighter because the need doesn't exist as it used to. So it has become more of a concern because only 12% of our population have tertiary exposure. And so each person that migrates with that exposure is of greater concern because we don't have a great surplus of those persons as we would have had a possible surplus of persons that were seeking physical employment and the use of physical labor.
Why do they migrate?
Sorry?
Why do they migrate?
Well, I believe that globalization is the foundation of that in the context that the free movement of goods and capital was once what took away a lot of the opportunity from those countries that were less well off. So goods were moving from the States, from England, etc. And so opportunities now being less within the less developed countries or the developing countries, they are now going to be seeking opportunities. So the movement of people is now catching up with the movement of goods and the movement of capital.
But why are you giving me such a complicated answer? They move because the remuneration is so much better.
Well, not just the remuneration.
One of your colleagues, you see,
Yes.
Not in the Senate, but in the lower house,
Right.
told me, I tell you, Julian Robinson, I was talking to him the other day, and he was telling me about, he says one of his best teachers, migrated. And when he spoke with her sometime after she had left, she's earning $7,000 a month.
And that is possible.
I mean,
too.
that's $1 million Jamaican a month.
But if you look at not all will be in that circumstance. But there's some men who are leaving because their wife are unemployed. There's some wives that are leaving because their husbands or the general family have issues. And so there's a greater draw from the country, not only by the salaries, but by the opportunities that are available to live a comfortable life with a certain level of exposure. So yes, there are some possibilities of increased salaries, but there are also, when I interviewed many of the teachers, a complaint that they're almost destined to fail based on our systematic problems within the school. So they don't get that personal gratification that they would want from having successful students. There are some that speak to the standards of their offices, etc., that give them a level of frustration. And there's some that speak to the multiplicity of tasks they're called upon because of the underemployment of things such as guidance counselors. So they feel that their duties extend further than what their salary and their responsibility show. So we have to kind of look deeper into it to get a better understanding of how to compete with these countries, because most of those who are leaving, if they were able to get reasonable living, purchase reasonable housing, purchase reasonable vehicles, they would remain because of certain benefits that we have.
Well, give me an idea. What would those incentives be?
Okay, well, we made some proposals, one of which is, for example, if a teacher could get a concession based on the years that they, so 5 years they get a 5%, 10 years they get a 10%, 15 they get a 15%.
You're talking about motor vehicle purchase.
Motor vehicle concession, because that's one complaint, and that is now our cultural demand for senior living good is to have a car. That's also the reality of the time. If NHT could consider teachers and the public sector, as you said, the nurses and the police, if they could consider them like the banks do, to give them special loans that transforms into a bank mortgage once they leave the sector, it could retain them. So, for example, if NHT gave 14 million for the public sector, but the other, that would be 6 million or 5 million, comes to a regular mortgage once they leave, the banks have used that 2% loan for years to keep their best people in the banks. So that would give them access to housing. If we had rent-controlled spaces within certain HAJ units for public sector workers, again, that could give them an impetus to stay. And if we use certain purchases like the internet as a tool of trade, so if we negotiated as government for the flows and the digicels to offer special rates or to offer the government a special rate that we then give to teachers for free for internet as a tools of trade. Their total consumption would not be defined only by their salary.
Would that make a big impact, or it would be just tinkering at the edges?
Well, I think it would make a big impact because what you want is experience, is a long-run cost curve. You don't want to be replenishing your experienced teachers at every given point with new teachers because then you would be less effective, less productive, and less efficient. We want those who have seen many suns, who have felt many winds, and who have heard many thunders to remain within the teaching space and to become mentors for those who are coming in the space. So I believe that if we were able to own a reasonable home, drive a reasonable car, and to have because remember, we're constrained, Prime Minister, by the wage to GDP ratio. So we can't just say, oh, we raise the pay. We have to find kind of creative ways to make the pay be stretched further than the absolute amount would.
Do the countries that are benefiting from this migration, do they have any responsibility in the matter? I raise that question because Britain introduced something some years ago where they were making it less easy for skilled persons to migrate there from developing countries. I don't know whether they had a special list of those developing countries. How it has worked, I don't know, because I haven't seen any follow-up to it. But what they were seeking to do was, and I think it came out of a Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, is to discourage, our teachers and our nurses from leaving countries like Jamaica to come there. Do they, or is it that we're in a free market, so if we don't want to pay our teachers properly, then they will pay them?
Well, the world should not be allowed to operate in just a free context that, okay, we have a free market, because there have been certain realities and historical circumstances that have caused for the developed countries to be more competitive than we are currently, and those must be considered. I believe at best we could ask for compensation, that we could continuously train and expand our training for those persons. As I say, 80% of the fees was supposedly paid by the university, that once a person is recruited, I think that firm, if it's private, or that country, the government, should be replenishing that pool over a weighted average kind of an understanding. I think that is the best we can ask, because the private persons do have a freedom and a right to seek opportunities where opportunities exist. But
put it another way. If we're losing 6 out of every 10 nurses that we train,
right,
and we decide that what we need is 100 nurses,
right,
then it means that what we're going to have to do is to train 300 nurses.
Correct.
Right? And maybe that's where we should begin to look at training now almost as an export industry, where we train 10, we keep 4, and we know that 6 are going to migrate. But then you run into another problem, Damien. Where are you going to find the people to train if the majority of our kids are leaving school without the basic qualifications to enter tertiary education?
And that is why I've always said, if the answers were easy, everybody would have found it. There is indeed a reasonable number of persons who can't afford tertiary education, though they are qualified. I've had that experience while lecturing at the university with the deregistration, etc. At the time, $300,000 would have been more than the total minimum wage. So the fee for university is more than if you saved every single penny that you made in at the time in minimum wage earnings. So if we look at 7,500 or 10,000 per week now, that's 40,000 per month. 40,000 per month, that's 480,000. So a school fee of 300,000 at this time would be 3/5 or $6 out of every $10 that a person earns just for the fee. So there are some that cost is a problem. There's also some cultural norms like anti-mathematics that is causing for those pools to be underrepresented. So the majority of teachers are coming out with social studies and those history and those subjects. because culturally, from grade 6 and 7, we have been finding a resistance to mathematics. So that reduces the pool. So again, we see where the Chinese government have assisted with a STEM school that is coming. And those are some of the demands that we should make for the more developed countries to assist us with training expertise of our trainers, to assist us with scholarship into their spaces, so that our trainers can get that exposure, and to market once again the importance of education within our society, because the 80s babies and the 70s babies would have known of the importance of education. But my observation is the 2000 and the 2010 babies, they have ridiculed education as a method of improvement. And the 11-year-olds are now moving towards entertainment and sports and nefarious activities, scamming, etc., more so than that desire for education that the 70s and the 80s had.
Let me bounce a thought off you. And this is controversial, but when you're retired, you can embrace controversy,
Yeah.
Suppose the $13 billion that we are paying over to the 3 universities, UTech, UW, and CMU.
Yes.
Suppose instead of drawing a check to the universities, suppose we were to convert that $13 billion into a mass of scholarships. And we were to say, now, you want to study agronomy? That's an important topic. That's an important science course study for Jamaica. So yes, you want to study Turkish archaeology? No, we don't think that is so important to Jamaica's development right now. So that you begin to target your money into those areas of study that can really impact national development. So your teachers and your nurses and your doctors and your engineers and so on. And then in addition to that, suppose you were to say, now, since you're getting the scholarship, we're going to bond you. Right. And we're not bonding you to necessarily work with government, but we're bonding you that you must work in Jamaica.
Right.
So you can go work with private sector, you can go work with government, but you must work in Jamaica because we have invested a lot in you.
Yes.
But anybody who were to do that, I mean, them probably, some people are probably hang them up by them legs, no?
Well, you have made 2 points that I would like to speak to. One is if we should no longer fund the universities directly, but instead offer scholarships that persons would then qualify for based on the areas of study. So the university would argue that the total cost of the education is more than the 13 billion. And so if the government should not give the university directly, the fee would be more than the fee currently is. And so the government would have to give.
They're getting the 13 billion, it's just that it's the student going to bring it come, not coming by courier. The student is going to present it.
Yes, yes.
And they would still have to charge the fees that they do normally.
Okay, so
we would probably have to still provide the student loan to help the students to meet those fees.
So the subsidy is to the student.
Yeah, that's right.
$1 million, and the student's subsidy is 700,000 from the government.
Yes.
So that student is spending 300,000, and not the university saying for every.
But it does 2 things. It does 2 things. Right now, you can't bond a student going to university unless you give them some special scholarship.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Now we would be able to bond them. So the students probably going to hate my guts for that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But secondly, you would then be able, you made an important point a while ago. When I look at the amount of mass comm graduates that the university is producing, I'm wondering who they're going to mass comm with. Yeah. So what I'm saying is it would put you in a position where you can say, now look, if you want to go and study something that has no relevance whatsoever to Jamaica's skills needs at this time, fine. Yeah. If the university is offering the course, fine, but you must find your way to do that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
If you're going to study something now that can help Jamaica to develop and grow, here is the scholarship. But understand, when you graduate, you can go abroad and visit your uncle and so on, but you have to come back here and work in Jamaica.
Yes.
And I wouldn't tie them to government. I would say work in Jamaica. So if you can get a good private sector job, so long as you're in Jamaica and you're helping to build Jamaica, then I'm into that.
Now, can I add something to that as well? There are some courses at the university called foundation courses. It is my opinion that the brightest in the society should have to do teaching as a study. You should be able to teach, because not only in the classroom, if you're managing, you should be able to teach generally. So I think that if we were to make foundation courses, that the 6 professional teaching courses, all our people, actuarial sciences can teach. He can work at surgical if he wants as well.
So what you're saying is so that they'll be able to pass on the knowledge.
So that they will be able to pass on the knowledge. Because the ability to teach is a talent in and of itself. And our best people are not. When I went to university, and it's no disrespect to teachers' colleges, the persons who were the brightest chose the UE, then it was UTech, and it was the people who chose the Micos. They were not the ones with the A levels that they couldn't afford the university. But the general reality is that we have 50% of our tertiary people not being able to depart knowledge.
You mentioned something earlier, and I wanted to. I'm straying a bit from the topic, but it's important. Tell me, why is it that we seem to have this instinctive discomfort with mathematics?
One, culture is based on what is celebrated, is based on what is passed on. I've heard people say them take off of them. And so because historically you don't have the support systems, and by extension you fail, a lot of people then assume that they are incompetent because they don't have those support systems. Mathematics in particular don't have a middle ground, and so you're right or you're wrong. And so things like history that a person can say, oh, you get a 60%. You feel a little bit depressed with mathematics when they get a 0. Because
but you know, it was because of that. Why I used to love it. You know, when I was in school. Well, in those days, I don't know what it is like now, but in those days, it was mathematics. You did 3 different subjects: algebra, geometry, and arithmetic. And I used to love it. And the reason why I used to love it is because I never need a teacher to mark it to tell me whether I'm right or wrong. You know, when you work out a problem, you work out a problem.
Yes.
But I don't know, when I look at the pass level or the failure level for maths.
30% passes and stuff like that.
Good God, man.
Prime Minister, is a thing that we have ignored the importance of training the mind to be logical. Some of our criminal activities, because we don't train our mind.
Hold on, David. And not knocking the thought that I'm about to express. I hear that part of our problem is we don't have specialist teachers in mathematics. But
we do have some, not enough.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
Yes.
But you too young. But when I was at school, we never had a specialist teacher in maths.
Right.
They were just regular teachers. And them teach you maths and them teach it good.
Right.
What's wrong with that? Or what happened to that?
Well, again, we have some problems. Teaching was a vocation once upon a time. Now it's a job. So people who used to go spend all night to try and make a child understand, the classroom sizes have changed dramatically. The student rules have changed. I remember when I was at primary school, you used to get beaten if you don't know your 2 times, so you had to know your 2 times. So some of those things, the way the teacher can impart on the student, now the parent would come fight.
You're close here. Well, follow up on that point. You're closer to it than I am now. But tell me, do teachers in a typical classroom, do teachers know all of the students in that class by first name?
No. Highly unlikely. Can I give you I'm a teacher, sir. I've been teaching since the age of 19. And I'm now 41. So I've been teaching for a very long time. I used to teach in an inner city school. It had 53 kids in the class. Teach mathematics. They had no geometry set, they had no calculator, and they had no books. When you say the area of a circle is pi r square, his mind stop at the pi, you keep the r square. He hasn't ate all morning. So you only thought, is it pecan or what kind of pie is it? So therefore, that's a different circumstance. I then went to a traditional school. It had 30 children in the class. everyone had a book, everyone had a calculator, everyone had a geometry set. They also went to extra classes. Now, when I had a class at the non-traditional school, for 10 minutes, the children had to go to whichever class had PE or lab to borrow desks and chairs. So for 10 minutes out of the 40 minutes, they were seeking to find seats. Additionally, for 10 minutes after class, you have to write the homework on the board because you can't say chapter 2, they don't have a book. So out of 40 minutes, you had 20 minutes for 53 students. And you had 4 or 5 of those classes, 3 5th form and 2 10th grade. I went to Denham Town on a Monday once to teach at the school, Denham Town High School. I said, give me all your CXC kids. There were 32 of them, all from a cohort of 200. At this at 10 on a Monday, 10 a.m. One child said her head is hurting her. She haven't eaten. This is 10 a.m. The rest of the class had a suggestion of what the solution would be. Drink soda at 10 a.m. on a Monday. So that child is incapable of learning whatever.
We're fast running out of time. We're coming up to the 12 o'clock break. I want to bounce one other idea off you. Again, controversy. But when I looked at the numbers the other day, a little less than half of the students in that final cohort of the high school, the one where I'm supposed to take the exit exam, no?
Yes.
A little less than half of them can't take the exam because they don't measure up.
Correct.
So it's 50-something% who actually sit the exam. And of the 50-odd% who sit the exam, you just quoted some numbers in terms of maths and English, and you could also quote the number in terms of those who leave without the 5 CSEC or whatever you call it, right? Yes. Suppose somebody were to say, Damien, that look, some of the children can handle the 6 subjects. Some of them can handle 9 subjects.
Yes.
Let them handle 9.
Yes.
But those kids who have a problem, are challenged, there's no point in forcing them into the exam room to go take 6 different subjects and hope to get the 5 out of the 6. They can't manage that. What we want to do is to make sure they have maths and English.
Yes.
So, the history and so on, boy, we can try and help you with that later on. But right now, we want you to come out of school with at least maths and English. Yes. Because any job that you're going into, it may not need history. It may not need literature.
Right.
But maths and English it must have.
Yes, they need logic and communication.
That's right. Yes. But when I was in office, we had a workshop once and I suggested that, and the people from the Ministry of Education looked at me and thought I was crazy.
Well, sir, there are some people who are comfortable in the circumstances as is and worried that the new circumstance might create discomfort. And there will always be that when change is being proposed. With the 7-year experience that the government has suggested now, I believe that we can move away from every school being the same thing with the same realities, with the same curriculum, because they don't have the same reality.
Tailor it more to deal with the circumstance of the student.
Right. So you should have, in my opinion, a remedial 7, because there are some kids that are coming without the ability to learn at the secondary level. They need remedial intervention. They shouldn't be doing 13 subjects in 7th grade because they can't basically read, they can't basically do any numeracy levels. Is low. I think you should have that. I think you also need a remedial 10 because some with the talent have lost their way because of the natural realities of teenage life.
They need some catching up.
They need some catching up, and they need some intervention more from a guidance than a capacity.
And my engineer tell me that he needs to do some catching up too because I'm over time.
Okay.
Damien, thanks a whole lot.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure talking to you.
And let's do it again, no?
Anytime, my brother. Thank you.
Sure. That was Senator Damien Crawford, opposition spokesman on education. We take the break.